We live in a world that is obsessed with the physical. From a very young age, we are taught the importance of physical hygiene. We are told to brush our teeth twice a day, to clean our cuts to prevent infection, and to exercise to keep our bodies functioning. We have a clear universal understanding of how to maintain our physical health. But when it comes to our minds, we are surprisingly silent. Why is it that we spend so much time caring for our teeth, but almost no time caring for our psychological health? The reality is that we sustain psychological injuries far more often than we do physical ones. We encounter failure, rejection, and loneliness as part of the human experience. Yet, when someone suffers from these emotional wounds, the common advice is often, just shake it off or it's all in your head. Can you imagine saying that to someone with a broken leg? It's all in your leg, just walk it off. It sounds absurd, yet we apply this dismissive logic to our mental health every day. It is time we close the gap between our physical and psychological well-being and start practicing true emotional hygiene. Let's talk about loneliness. This is more than just a feeling of sadness. It is a deep psychological wound that distorts our perception of reality. Loneliness creates a biological hazard. It scrambles our thinking, making us believe that the people around us care much less than they actually do. It makes us afraid to reach out because we fear rejection, even when we are desperate for connection. Chronic loneliness is not just miserable, it is dangerous. Scientific research has shown that it poses a health risk as significant as cigarette smoking. It increases the likelihood of early death, contributes to high blood pressure, and suppresses the immune system. We warn people about the dangers of smoking, yet we rarely acknowledge the deadly, invisible impact of chronic loneliness. Then there is the issue of failure. When we encounter setbacks, our minds often play a trick on us. We have a default set of feelings that gets triggered whenever we face frustration. If we aren't careful, we let these feelings convince us that we are incapable of succeeding. You see this in how people respond to challenges. Some people feel helpless and stop trying, while others push through. If you let yourself be convinced by a single failure that you aren't good enough, you will eventually function below your potential. You stop trying, which leads to more failure, creating a negative cycle. You have to fight this feeling of helplessness. You cannot allow a temporary setback to define your long-term capability. Perhaps the most common injury is rejection. When we are rejected, our instinct is often to turn that pain inward. We start attacking our own self-esteem. We call ourselves names, we focus on our flaws, and we criticize ourselves for things we wish we were or weren't. Think about that for a second. Why would we intentionally damage our own self-esteem when it is already hurting? You wouldn't take a knife to a physical wound to see how deep you can make it. So why do we do that to our minds? When you are in emotional pain, you should treat yourself with the same compassion you would offer a good friend. Another major enemy of emotional health is a habit called rumination. This is when you cannot stop replaying a negative event in your head, like a fight with a friend, a critique from a professor, or a moment of embarrassment. You chew over the incident for days or weeks. This is a costly habit. By constantly focusing on negative thoughts, you put yourself at risk for developing clinical depression, eating disorders, and cardiovascular disease. The urge to ruminate can feel strong, but it is not productive. So, how do we practice emotional hygiene? It requires intentional, daily action. First, you must recognize that you are injured. You cannot treat a psychological wound if you don't even know you have one. Second, you must take active steps to heal. When you find yourself in the trap of rumination, use the power of distraction. Studies show that even a 2-minute distraction is enough to break the urge to dwell on negative thoughts. Force your brain to focus on something else, a complex task, a hobby, or a conversation, until the emotional intensity passes. Third, you must actively protect your self-esteem after a rejection. Counteract the negative inner voice by listing the things you do like about yourself. Finally, change your response to failure. Instead of viewing a setback as evidence of your inadequacy, view it as a data point, a sign that you need to adjust your approach, not a sign that you should quit. We have the power to build emotional resilience. Just as personal hygiene practices increased life expectancy by over 50% in the last century, Practicing emotional hygiene could drastically raise our quality of life today. Imagine a world where people knew how to overcome failure, where there was less loneliness, less depression, and more empowerment. That world is possible. By becoming informed about how our minds work and by changing a few simple habits, we can stop neglecting our psychological health and start living more fulfilled, resilient, and connected lives. Start today. Treat your mind with the same care and respect you give your body. You deserve it. Have a nice day.